Well, the phased-in return of university students to campus under level 3 of the lockdown has highlighted the need for an updated approach to student housing. Well, in order to provide a controlled environment where hygiene protocols and residence-based screening can be enforced on campus, accommodation needs to limit social interaction without losing the vitally important aspect of community. Well, to unpack this further, I'm joined via Skype by Sean Keneally, the director at Student Accommodation Group, South Africa. Good afternoon to you, Sean, and thank you so much for joining us. I mean, traditionally, student housing has been about accommodating as many students as possible. With the current pandemic, what changes need to be done to ensure that students are safe and protected within these residences?
Yeah, Lindi, hi. Absolutely. Typically, it's been a cost consideration has been the driving factor around student accommodation. So as many possible students in one facility has been the traditional approach. And that obviously creates a scenario where there are lots of shared facilities, so typically shared ablutions, etc., which limits the ability to control how the students use the space. So our approach speaks to try to create an environment where the student living housing is actually replicates a home environment. So our thinking is that if you can introduce an environment that replicates a community that people are used to, it will ease the way that they can move into what is often a very impersonal and daunting move from, particularly for first-year students moving to university. So it's really about how you can ease the shock, in effect, of going into first year. So in essence, that also offers another opportunity, and that is because you are creating closer communities. So in our student pod system, we have typically 4 to 8 students sharing a pod, and we call it a pod. It has a common communal facility, and it has separate bedrooms. So when you create these communities, you allow students to create health and safety protocols amongst themselves. So, the tutoring and mentoring aspects that happen within that student environment allow students to set rules and regulations, assist each other with hygiene and health and safety considerations, and ensure that that community actually thrives. Unfortunately, we have so many students that are existing outside of a formal student housing environment, and that, I think, is one of the biggest concerns that we have in the student housing world, is that the students that are not accommodated in formal housing don't have the opportunity to have the hygiene facilities available, firstly. And that goes right down to the very basics, water supply, electricity supply. These are fundamental to the ability for students to maintain levels of hygiene. But also there are no formal controls in place where students are living in an informal environment. So it's so important that not only we accommodate as many students as possible on campus or as close as possible to campus, but also that we provide the kind of accommodation that is conducive to ensuring student success.
Absolutely. Sean, you touched a bit on the pods that Student Afrika has engineered. Tell us more about that. Would that exist within, accommodations that are already in place, or would that need a whole different type of accommodation?
Essentially, it's a new design concept. So the idea is that it provides a solution to universities that speaks to not only this idea of creating student communities and environments that are conducive to student success, but also speaks to affordability, because that is probably the biggest challenge we face in the student housing and tertiary environment. We have probably in excess of 300,000 students that are not accommodated, that have places in universities that are actually not accommodated in formal student housing or appropriate student housing. And a large reason for that, or a significant reason for that, is because of the cost. It's an expensive commodity, and we are concerned about the fact that the cost of student accommodation has moved out of the affordability range of the poorest of the students. And those are the students that rely on the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, which is effectively a government subsidy. So we have to create an environment where we can bring those most vulnerable of our students that are currently excluded into the ring, into the environment, into the community, and the way we do that is to provide a solution that is affordable. So it speaks to solving this crisis, which is a crisis of affordability, through optimum architectural design. So reducing all of the wasted space, creating a cohesive, very functional, very modern, and an environment that students can relate to. As I said, it kind of